Okay, so for today, September 24th, Thursday, we're going to look at the portfolio first. I just want to pull up a couple of items with that just to bring some clarity in case you have questions and kind of show you what you're getting into. I know several of you have already started on these, but again, just like we've seen, and the portfolios will be similar week to week, you're going to have some definitions, some of the major cell types, location, function, features. And again, you can be relatively brief. I don't need every single location. I just need one example of a location where you might find each of these. And again, we went through them in your slides on Tuesday, so you can access those. These are also going to be in your OpenStacks as well as in Visible Body. And again, you can keep it relatively brief with these. I don't want you to feel like you're having to reinvent the wheel or anything. It looks like a lot, but it really isn't. It's just a couple of terms for each one. All those terms are already in your PowerPoints and in the visible bodies today, and then a few more definitions as well. And then there's some tissue identification exercises and activities. And again, after you do your visible body lab today or this weekend, whenever you do it, you'll be able to also do this. So I would recommend doing the visible body lab activities, identifying some different tissue types. Some of these are directly from the PowerPoint or very similar to what you would see in the PowerPoint. We saw this simple cuboidal here. We saw blood as well. Okay. So again, on Tuesday, first thing Tuesday morning, I'm going to pull this up and go through it with you if you do have questions. I know you will. This weekend, when you're working on these, I expect to probably have a few questions. So I want to emphasize too that when you email me, try to be as specific as you can about what your questions are. So these aren't numbered, as you can tell. So first row, second row, third row, etc. Second one in, or you can take a screenshot if you're having issues with these. But again, I think for the most part, you should find these to be pretty straightforward. There will be a couple you're maybe a little bit torn between a couple of things, and that's how tissues and microscopes work. In face-to-face, we have the microscopes out, and you look at them that way as well as viewing slides. So, and again, whenever you see these cilia and these goblet cells and kind of a mishmash of nuclei, this is going to be that pseudostratified epithelium. When we have kind of a glassy, opalescent appearance, that's likely hyaline cartilage. Okay, and this looks like fat, looks like adipose cells. Okay, and this looks like it might be elastic cartilage. Okay, and then you can almost see we've got similar looking cells in there. If it's fibrocartilage, it'll also have those same types of cells, but you'll see a lot of fibers, and it looks like we might have something like that here. There's a lot of fibers kind of in there. Here's that reticular. Remember, we had the blood cells kind of mixed in with some jagged lines of fibers. We've got that areolar kind of loose connective tissue. Okay, so you should be able to go through the intercalated discs, remember, with the cardiac or the heart. We've got some neurons. Okay, so you guys will, after today and work, or whenever you decide to do the visible body, you should be able to answer most of those. And again, shoot me an email if you're struggling on one or two and you're ready to turn it in. Uh, Shoot me an email and I'll get back to you, or just submit it and then I'll go through it. Again, I don't mark off points if you haven't done a couple of the questions. You know, if you complete 95% of the portfolio and you just don't like with the macromolecule combos. Several of you just left them blank, and we talked about them after the fact. You'd already submitted them. I'm not going to take off points for that. It's a learning opportunity. And if you had issues with trying to figure out what tissue one of these were, or a few of them were, uh, I guarantee your classmates had questions too. They may just not have wanted to email, or they knew we would just discuss them in class. So please make note of which ones of these you have questions on next Tuesday. But I do want you to make a good solid attempt. I think you'll, like I say, in your slides and as well as OpenStax and Visible Body combined with even just using Google Images, you'll be able to identify those. So anyhow, there's a few parts that you need to identify, and then it gets into the integumentary system and identification of the skin. Okay, so you've got a skin model there, and that's also going to be in Visible Body. It's also in your slides, so you should be able to make those identifications, and then a couple of skin functions. Okay. And also where it says a minimum of 5 sentences, minimum of 2, minimum of 3. Again, I'm not strict on that either. If you want to do bullet points, that's fine too. You can, instead of writing a minimum of 5 complete sentences, put 3 or 4 bullet points and just write a couple of little bullet points about these things. So again, this is your experience. When it appears sometimes that it's very like you have to do this and this many, 5 sentences, 2 sentences, I'm not keeping track necessarily of that. I am keeping track of the content, though, that you put in, because again, it is your experience and how you remember and organize your brains and organize all this crazy material is really up to you and what works best for you. And it may change from week to week. You may find one way works better than another. So anyway, a couple of analyzing the content deeper. So we've got the integumentary system working with other organ systems. And again, it says you must write. In fact, here, I'll tell you how this will still appear. We're just going to delete that sentence. There you go. You can write as few or as many as you want. Just write something. And if you're stumped, type something in, put a couple question marks. That's what some students will do. That's an indicator to me when I'm grading as well that, you didn't just leave it blank. You put something, but with a question mark after it tells me that you weren't quite sure of what you put. Because it could be a correct answer. You could have the right answer with a question mark. Again, that's kind of your communication with me that, hey, I got this right, but it was kind of a struggle to get to it. I'm really still not quite sure why that might be the right answer. So again, if you're educated guessing after a lot of digging and you're still not quite sure even why the answer is what it is, put the answer that you figured out, but put a little question mark or put in parentheses, not sure why this is. And again, some of you do that already. And so I appreciate that. And if those of you who don't, if you do encounter that, you can throw that in there, because I do add some comments in your assignments, which you can locate, by the way, as I'm grading assignments. Sometimes I'll put comments or highlights in your actual document. And how you can view those is by going back into the Dropbox where you put the assignment, and then you'd be able to read some of those comments. I don't do it on all of yours because sometimes they're just not necessary, but sometimes they are. So usually I try to put comments in the gradebook portion that you can see from the gradebook. It'll have the little talk bubble icon. That means I left you a comment, and you can access in the grade book. Sometimes, though, I'll leave a comment in the actual document that you submitted, so you can check that too. I'll note it in the comments in the grade book, please go back and look in the assignment. There are a few extra comments in there. If you ever have questions about that too, please let me know. So anyway, a couple of little tidbits. And again, some of these are just really kind of your thoughts. What do you think about what you know about the skin, and if the skin is faulty, how might the muscular system be affected? How might the urinary system? But it's basically linking the system. So and the functions. We know a function of the skin is maintenance of body temperature, maintenance of fluid balance within that body temperature balancing. The urinary system and the respiratory system both do those as well. So when you're looking at the urinary system and the integumentary system and how they kind of function together, if the integumentary system is dysfunctional in maintaining body temperature as well as fluid balance, then it's going to put more strain and pressure on the kidneys to take some of that work that the skin would be doing. It now has to take on some of that work. And we see again the same thing sometimes with the cardiovascular system. If the skin is unable to regulate temperature properly, it can lead to the cardiovascular system and the heart rate going up, blood pressure going up, vasoconstriction and blood vessels shrinking, and vasodilation and blood vessels growing in different areas. That could be altered as well. So, and again, try to put a couple clues in here for you too. Think about the vitamin D when you're thinking about the skeletal system, and if we're not getting UV from the sun and the skin is dysfunctional, or the melanocytes are non-responsive to UV, that can affect vitamin D synthesis, which can then affect our ability to absorb calcium and store calcium in our skeletal system. So really this is your introductions each week throughout the semester to linking kind of all of these body systems, and not just viewing them as compartmentalized, isolated individual things. They're all linked together. In physiology next semester, we really drive that home, that all of these body systems and their functions are intrinsically linked. And when one system is dysfunctional, it can cause more stress on another system that kind of, does similar functions, or at least has a precursor to the other one, the other system functioning properly. So if again, everything has to be working. That's that homeostasis of all body systems, all tissues, all cells working in conjunction to establish and maintain those healthy ranges. So anyhow, and then we've got our patient back. Paul was our prostate patient from last week. We've got some tissue slides now for you to look at regarding maybe what we see. We've got the Gleason scale, small uniform glands, and then we've got more stroma and space between glands and cells. So anyway, take a peek at that. And again, if there's, I would just ask a couple of questions. There's just 3 questions about it. And again, you don't need to be that detailed. Just try to keep it relatively clear and concise. That's what we look for generally in the clinic and in our patient charting and documentation. Is we want to be clear, concise, and correct. So how the 3 C's. So however you can accomplish that, it's going to behoove you long term. So anyway, actually there's just kind of 2 questions, maybe 3 questions within 2 questions. So just a couple of things about Paul and what we see on the tissue side of things. So he's coming to the clinic. We've done a blood draw. We've had him pee in a cup. We've run a couple diagnostics on the superficial way just to see what the numbers are. We haven't done anything invasive yet. Until now, we found that based on the PSA numbers, the prostate specific antigens were high. So now we do a biopsy and look at the tissue. So we're going a little bit deeper. So that's what you have here. So anyway, any questions on the portfolio? Like I said, go through it. When you have questions this weekend, you can let me know and through an email. If they're not that burning of questions, if you're kind of pretty sure and you're just ready to turn it in, that's fine too. Either way, we will go through some of these on Tuesday. So, and remember, everything's due Tuesday at midnight. Again, if you need extra time, that's fine as well. But so if you do have questions on the portfolio, just a few of them, you want to wait till Tuesday, we'll discuss them. Then you can fill them in and submit it to the Dropbox, even during class if you want. So anyway, keep that in mind, week in, week out, really. So let's move into the visible body tissues lab. Again, I'm not going to spend a heck of a lot of time doing the lab for you and with you. I'm going to introduce you to what you're going to need to do to be able to answer these questions and really to be able to understand a little bit better about what you're seeing when we look at tissues. Because again, every time we get to a new organ system, we did it with skin, right? We got to skin today or Tuesday, and we didn't just say, well, this is the epidermis, this is the dermis, there's some hair, there's some glands, and we're good to go. No, we looked at the epidermis in a tissue sense and even the cellular sense. These are squamosal cells for the most part. They're stratified. We looked at the specific cell types with the stratified squamous of the skin. We saw keratinocytes as a cell example that we found, melanocytes. So when we get to bone next week, we're going to look at the cells of bone. We're going to look at osteocytes. We're going to look at osteoblasts and osteoclasts. We're going to look at a couple different more specialized cells of the skeletal system. Okay, we'll look at cartilage cells a little bit next week as well. We'll look at ligament cells, and therefore we'll look at the tissue aspect. So we'll say, here's the skeleton. It's bone tissue, which remember was a type of connective tissue because it's cells in a matrix. So again, what you're getting my point is, what you're getting this week in tissues isn't just, okay, we learned tissues, next, let's get moving. No, we're learning tissues and we're going to continue to see them. When we get to muscles, one tissue type is muscle tissue. So we will reintroduce you to skeletal muscle tissue in a couple of weeks. When we get to the nervous system, we're studying nervous tissue now as a tissue type. We'll look at it again. We'll look at glial cells and neurons and all of that good stuff. So, and so on and so on. When we get to cardiovascular, we're going to see cardiac muscle tissue. We're going to see smooth muscle tissue that makes up the blood vessels. All right. And then what types of cells we would see, cardiac cells and so on. So again, if some of this is a bit cumbersome, totally understandable. By week, 10, week 12, when we say stratified squamous or pseudo-stratified epithelium or cilia or goblet cells, that's already you know it. It's just part of your language. It's like saying Oreos or ice cream or whatever. It's like any word that you just pizza that you already just know. Words, Coca-Cola, right? You're just adding words to your vocabulary you already know, and the more you see them, the more you're around them, the more they stick. So again, please don't, as you're going through these, don't get frustrated or even bored. Just view it as like, I'm checking these off. I'm putting these in my brain because I'm going to see them again. Okay. So as we saw last week, we're going to open up. Bloop. So let's go back to visible body, the actual program. I'm going to minimize last week. So we've got tissues and integumentary. That's what we're working with this week. And again, it's going to, most of what this visible body lab assignment is going to be, will be the tissue aspects. There's a few things with skin that you're going to want to do, but this assignment is primarily going to be from the tissue's spot. Uh, so anyway, just like we saw last week, we're going to open the A&P app and go through that. And this is where things got glitchy last week. So again, I don't know if it was Visible Body or Zoom. So far, so good. So we're going to be back in. See, there it goes. It's getting glitchy already. So I think it's safe to assume it's Visible Body. So I'm not going to spend too much time in here because I don't like that glitchy nature. It's probably a little bit distracting. So, and all of you did last week's work, so you already know what it looks like and what to expect. Queso, cheese, right? So anyway, okay. So what we're going to do is continue moving. We're still going to be in that first little section 1 through 4 because you'll recall we got through 1, 2, and 3. So you'll zoom down and and there we go. Tissue types in the body, and then it goes through those. Oops, wrong one. There we go. So it just starts with 4.1 tissue types in the body. What are the 4 main tissue? You don't even need to do visible body to answer these, right? We did epithelial, connective, muscular, and nervous just last class session. Okay. It's a couple of things in the matrix. Wants to know what's in the matrix. Specialized connective tissue that consists of cells in a matrix. Okay. Connective tissue, right? Primarily. You could even specify types. You could say blood and bone. Okay. Okay, so then 4.2 asks you a couple of different types of so then it gets into some epithelium, connective, muscle, and nervous, and a couple more questions, and then it starts honing in on the specifics. So letter C starts getting into epithelial aspects. So module 4.2 and 4.3 will go through the epithelial aspects. So just providing one example of organ or organ location. And again, some of you, I don't know if how you guys do your work, but kind of the way I've set it up is you know, you've got the Padlet, and then you have the visible body. And by the time you do the portfolio, you can answer those without too much effort as far as because you've done them already. Some students I've talked to, they actually do them concurrently. They'll have the Padlet up, the visible body up, and the portfolio up, and they'll kind of knock each thing out that way. They'll have the PowerPoint up, the outlines up, because remember too, those review outlines are not review outlines, but the outlines for the chapters are going to be extremely helpful in answering both your portfolio and your visible body. So the information to answer everything you need to answer is there. How you go about it, totally up to you. All right. So anyway, I don't want to belabor too much of this because I do want you to have some time today, or to do whatever you're going to do today, which may be work on visible body or other A&P stuff, or maybe have other classes, maybe you have work, maybe you just want to hang out outside, enjoy the last days of warm weather. But anyway, I've put a couple of tables in that again just ask you. Just follow right along with what you're doing in this visible body app, and you'll be able to answer everything. And again, even from information you already have, you may be able to answer these. So anyhow, just like last week, and just like with the portfolio, on Tuesday morning, I'm going to say, does anybody have questions on the visible body lab? I'll pull it up and I'll go through what I'm doing now and say, were there any bumps in the road? Are we good? And then we'll go through the portfolio, do the same thing. Any bumps? Where are we at? Nope, we're good. Oh, we've got a few tissues. Let's talk about these. Okay, so that's really kind of how things will roll uh, throughout the semester, and then we'll jump into the skeletal system. And again, as I mentioned, Tuesday, I'm tweaking the calendar just a little bit. We're going to spend 2 weeks on skeletal system. You're still going to have your weekly stuff. Nothing's going to change in that respect. However, we're going to spread things out a little bit. We're going to do skeletal system in week 5 and week 6. We're going to do muscles in week 7 and week 8. So I'm going to readjust the calendar strictly just based on moving things around and expanding things. You still have the same. Nothing is going to change in any other way regarding your assignments or your expectations or your portfolios or any of that. So anyway, keep that in mind as we go forward. It'll be better. Trust me. We don't want to jam pack bones into 1 week. We really don't. So anyway, or muscles or nervous system. So go through, answer those, and then it gets into the muscle tissue, just a couple of questions, nervous tissues, a couple of questions, and back up to connect. So it goes epithelial chunk questions, connective tissue questions, couple on muscle, and really just a couple on the nervous system tissue. So we looked at the path of flow of electricity through a neuron. There's a little bit of info on that. We'll talk about it again when we get to the nervous system. But again, we're dealing with 4 items initially. Dendrites are number 1. That's where the impulses are going to arrive at a neuron through the dendrites. And then we're going to be in the cell body of the neuron where the nucleus is. And then we're going to transmit and kind of funnel all that electricity down into the axon. The one axon tail of the neuron is going to continue to perpetuate that signal all the way down to what we call the terminal. Terminal means terminate, right? The end. So that's an indicator that we're at the end of the line. The axon terminal is where the transmission is going to end at that specific neuron, and then it's going to jump over and connect with a neighboring neuron's dendrites. So again, that's the 1, 2, 3, 4 of it all. A little tidbit and a little info on tissue repair. We talked about it to some degree the other day. This just adds a little bit more info, nothing too particularly detailed, just a couple of extras. And again, back in the Padlet, there's a video on tissue repair. In fact, there are a couple of the videos in there. And by the way, this Padlet, remember, it's chapters 4 and 5, so it's beefier. There's a lot more videos to watch. And again, you only are required to do 1, but I would highly recommend viewing more than 1 and potentially not right away. You could view 1 or 2 or just kind of look at them and then go back to them. Like when you get to a question like this, visible body and the A&P app, they're going to help. The PowerPoint's going to help, but you may be like, oh man, I remember there was a video in Padlet that broke down tissue repair and scarring. So again, you may, or just because you want a different perspective or a different way of viewing it or looking at it, the Padlets, again, are constructed to address the objectives. The visible body activities, the portfolio activities, and the exam questions address the objectives. So don't view I'm not going to tell you how to view things, but I would recommend viewing the Padlet as more than just one more thing I got to do in Mr. Yogam's class. Just watch this one. Where's the slow? Oh, here's one. It's only 2.5 minutes. Yep, 2.5 minutes. I'll just fast forward. So 30 seconds. Boop. Oh, this was a great video. Doop, done. Check. I'm done. That took you a minute and a half to do the Padlet, to do the checkup. That's fine. I'm not babysitting anybody. I have trouble babysitting myself. So you really, how you do it and your experience is totally yours. I'm giving you everything to access to make it as great of an experience or as minimal and checking things off. And I'm telling you, if you take that minimal route, you may get a B. You may even get an A out of the deal. But I'm going to tell you, physiology is going to be tough. Pharmacology is going to be even tougher. Your foundation that you're establishing, the precedent that you're setting right now and how you view what you're learning and how you're learning it, is truly going to set you up for success or for struggles later on. So again, you can take the you could do the bare minimum. That's fine, but you're gonna be able, you'll learn more, you'll absorb more, you'll feel more fulfillment from really grasping and understanding this material for using it in the future for your livelihood, for applicability. We're not talking about a speech class here. Oh, I gotta just go ahead and do a speech, but how the heck's that gonna, that doesn't matter. They're not gonna look at that when I get hired. But even then, you're still gonna have to view it as, I have to be able to understand the ability to communicate effectively. So you could view speech class as a thorn in your side and I just got to do it, or your communications classes or whatever other classes you have. But again, every course that we provide you with that you're taking, there's going to be something there that is going to really benefit you as a human, as a student certainly, and as a healthcare provider in out in the real world. So your experience is totally yours, and we simply just facilitate and provide you with what you need. So anyway, I just wanted to mention that too, and because I do see a variety of different uh, uh, Padlet entries and a variety of different um, your homework assignments, and so I understand that all of you are individuals and this is all an individual experience, and for the most part I will say that every single one of you is doing excellent, and you've really dug in, and that's great to see, and you're going to keep digging in and digging deeper, and really opening up those problem solving, critical thinking rooms in your brain, because up to this point, maybe that hasn't been encouraged enough in your lives. But I'm here to encourage you to critically think, be more objective with what you're being told, with what you're reading, with what you're seeing in this day and age, in this world we're living in. 2020 has been a wild ride, and it's not going to get any less wild in 2021 or 22. That's just life, right? So it's all the more reason for you guys that are going into the front lines of the healthcare industry during a pandemic. So keep your eyes and ears open, be present everywhere you go, center, focus, be aware of your surroundings, be aware of everything that's coming in, be able to filter it and take it for what it is. Don't read too deep, don't read too shallow, just be aware, be objective. And that is, you're training your own minds right here and now to be able to do that, because that's a skill that takes time and work and effort and energy, and it's an ongoing lifelong skill. Okay, we would never master it. We're always students practicing that skill of boundaries, intentions, communication, positivity, objectivity, being pragmatic. All of those things are extremely important for your survival and for your health and your well-being throughout the rest of your lives. And you'll be able to help your friends and your families, your colleagues, and your patients to also just in the way you live and how you present yourself and how you handle stressors. That is influential in a positive way to everyone around you. So anyway, I am not going to go too much further. I think you guys have a pretty good idea of what what my expectations are and what the expectations of yourselves are. And um, so anyway, I'm going to go into the integumentary 5 and 6. There are a couple of things. There's nothing really specifically in typing or in writing that I need you to do for the integumentary system. So I want to back up and let you know what I do want you or need you to do. It kind of hints at it down here. You're going to do what you did last week, and go back into visible body under your assignments, and open that tissues one up. And again, you can go through the modules and practice quiz stuff. That's certainly, it's not required, but it's going to be beneficial and help. But you want to do the graded quiz on that. And again, it's set to unlimited. It's no time. It's no pressure. It's simply going through and answering the questions, and then as I grade and start putting your grades in for the lab activities, I go in and see and make sure that you've done those quizzes. And then for the integumentary, there are a couple extra quizzes. And then we again, we see modules and practice quizzes. So you can certainly travel around in there. Anatomy ID, I'm going to click that and open that up just so you can see what that looks like. It's just like it sounds. It's an anatomy identification with the visible body. It's going to give us kind of that three-dimensional chunk of skin if we ever get it pulled up. Hey, here it is. So that is going to be located in the Human Anatomy Atlas. So you can, again, access that in your My Apps, but that also took us right to it. It's by opening that. So whenever you see identification aspects, come on, there we go. Whoops, I got to clicking too much. Up there it goes. It popped it up for us. Okay, so it pulls up the skin, and again, really, it's just kind of a blank slate. So you can, if you've got your touch screen, it's there for you to just move around. You can touch an item. Let me move my. Hold on, let me move this out of the way. I don't know if you guys can see that, but from my end, I can. So anyway, so yeah, just click on an item and it'll give you some info. If you click the little down arrow and then in the little booklet, again, it's going to give you some great information. If you click pathologies, we can see a couple of pathologies associated with the dermis of the skin specifically. And again, I could click just on a gland if I want. So it's showing me a sweat gland. I click on the definition of sweat gland. It'll give me some information that way. So that's, again, you can spend no time, a lot of time, whatever you want time in that area. Just know that this is your first kind of introduction to the anatomy ID option. That's going to come up a lot. And what that does is it opens up the Human Anatomy Atlas 2020 app. So this is really just your feet wet, getting your feet wet with the Human Anatomy app, not the Anatomy Physiology one, but the Human Anatomy one. This is your introduction. So I would highly recommend checking that out, because next week and the following subsequent weeks, you're going to be doing quite a bit with bone identification and muscle identification. And because we're not together and we don't have the models, these are your models. The Human Anatomy Atlas will be one of your main helpers with that. And again, I want to reiterate, if you do need tutoring assistance, please let me know. I put an announcement in a couple weeks ago with the link to get tutoring. Maybe you don't need tutoring. Maybe you just want to look at some models. You can, again, set that up with them to go onto any of the campuses, except for Burlington. I think Elkhorn, Racine, and Kenosha, you can make arrangements to go to the tutoring center or the Learning Success Center and access models. So, and again, it's Halloween, so it might be time to go shopping this weekend. Go to the Dollar Tree, Walmart, Farm and Fleet, whatever you shop, and maybe you have, or just pull out your Rubbermaid totes from last year's Halloween, and time to get the skeletons out, because we're going to be neck deep over the next 2 weeks with skeletal. So anyway, lastly, here are those quizzes. There are 2 integumentary quizzes. One is the dissection type of quiz, which is going to relate a lot with this. So you may want to have this open, the Human Anatomy Atlas, while you're taking the dissection quiz. And that's it. That's all you need to do for visible body. Is actually invisible body. There are 3 quizzes. You have 2 integumentary quizzes, 1 tissue quiz. Okay, and then you need to fill out your paperwork here, your Google Doc or your Word doc, and that's it. And then the portfolio, keep plugging away at that. I also want to remind you as well, when we go back into Blackboard, the exam review questions tab along the side will take you to, I need to close these visible bodies now. They're slugging up the works. Okay, so if you go to review questions exam 4, it's going to pop up the test bank in essence. Okay, so again, you get 40 questions out of this batch. So if as you're reviewing or getting ready to take your exam, or you could print that out, just print it out and take it, go through, answer them, however you do it. And then, man, you're going to be primed and ready when the exam pops up. You're going to be, you'll have seen these, you'll know them, you'll dug in a little bit. So anyway, that's what this is. So if you have not checked this out, if you're just going in and popping the exam open and taking it, and you're not necessarily, you're getting in the 20s on your exams, you're going to want to prepare a little differently. And one of the ways you're going to want to prepare is by going through the bank, and it takes some time. It's anywhere from 75 to 100 questions each week. um so anyway, you can take it for what it's worth, but you should be able to find the answers to these in the slides. These are, for the most part, they're right from my slides. It's what we discuss, which are also from visible body, from OpenStax, etc. So anyway, if you have questions or you want to know the answers to some of these, if you're struggling, email me and let me know, and I'll tell you tell you what or I'll give you some guidance as to what you're looking for these. But anyway, this one's a little beefier, 115. Well, it's 2 chapters. So, okay, well, that's it, guys. Thursdays, I plan on maximally, for the most part, spending about an hour with you, maybe a little less sometimes, maybe a little more. But Tuesdays are our bulky days. That's our 3 hour, almost 3 hour, 2.5, crunch time. So now's your day to just kind of reflect a little bit and go through what's expected of you regarding just basically being able to identify and be exposed to some of these different terms and where they're located. So I'll leave it up to you now. I'm going to stop recording. Do you guys have any questions at the moment? And again, if you do, please send me an email and I'll get back to you.